Hello, and welcome to the fourth ever Hilltop Happy Hour. I hope you had a great week, have a cocktail, mocktail, or coffee in hand, and are ready to talk retirement planning. I'm really excited about today's happy hour because it's a topic that has a lot to do with behavioral finance, and frankly, I find the intersection of money and emotion to be just such an interesting crossroads. So I am really excited about today's topic. And that topic is the annuity puzzle. So buckle up and let's talk annuities and human behavior. But before we do, let's do the drink recipe. So, FYI, I'm not just being lazy with this recipe. But when thinking about annuities, I think often consumers are confused about what annuities really are, which to me, they're just products. They're not a service, although they can provide a service, and they're not in themselves a relationship. Although you could have a really strong relationship with your agent. But first and foremost, they're a product, they're a tool. And so in this light today, I wanted to review a canned cocktail, which to me is sort of analogous to the annuity. See, there's no mixing or measuring on the consumer's part, it's just a prepackaged product. The other reason I wanted to review the canned cocktail is because summer is just around the corner. So we're talking picnics, outdoor concerts, beaches, boat rides, all the good stuff. And I think summer screams just drinks you can throw in a travel cooler and go. As far as the product itself, I wanted to review a local product in Hilltop being here in Austin. I chose Austin Cocktails, and I tried this last night, and it's really good. I really liked it. They come in 3 different flavors, and they're sold in a 4-pack, and each one is 8 ounces. That's why they look so small in my hand. And I think they're just good to have on hand. You know, someone invites you at the last minute to something, and you're like, "Put me in, coach. I'm ready to go." They're not super sugary, which is good, and they're not loaded with calories like you might expect. So I highly recommend you give them a go. One word of caution, though, these aren't like your White Claws or Truly sitting at 4 to 5%. They're full on cocktails. This is north of 12%. So if you just grab it from a cooler and like pop it open and drink it like a beer, you're going to be like taken back because it's pretty strong. So I recommend grabbing a red Solo cup and some ice and throwing it in, and you got yourself a cocktail on the go. So easy and prepackaged. It reminds me of an annuity. So cheers to summer, good times, and being outdoors with good people. Okay, back to the topic at hand, which is annuities, and how economists describe a puzzling relationship between annuities and consumers, coined the annuity puzzle. But before we get into this puzzle, I want to quickly review what annuities are. Now, the fundamental purpose of annuities is to ensure a series of payments by the insurance company to the participant, often for the remainder of his or her life. Or at least that was the original intent. However, what conceptually began for a simple singular purpose has since evolved into a ton of different products, and some can be pretty complex. One of the reasons for this complexity is that annuities can also be a way to accumulate wealth, not just distribute it. While the products to accumulate can be thought of like similar to an account, the pension like version is when you annuitize those funds or any lump sums and you irrevocably give up those funds and in return receive a series of payments. It's that type of annuity, the income annuity or lifetime payments, that is a type of annuity that is a subject for the annuity puzzle. So that's what we're talking about today. Also, one last disclaimer is as a fee only advisor, I do not sell insurance products nor receive any commissions on insurance products. So I'm talking about annuities today because I want to provide holistic retirement planning education, which can, and I emphasize can, include annuities as an income source. So I think it's important. And so here we go. Back to the annuity puzzle. So let's start with a little role play to illustrate how the puzzle works. So picture a dinner party. We have a couple teachers and a couple tech workers blowing off some steam. The teachers get on the subject of burnout, and they're really feeling it this year. The kids, the workload, the admin. Now, one of the techies interjects and says, "Well, come on, at least you have that pension. God, what I wouldn't give for a pension." And one of the teachers says, "Dude, you have a 401k. You know that when you retire, you can just pay an insurance company to give you a pension, right?" Now, the techie replies, "Hold on, let me get this straight. You want me to just give up all of this money that I've been saving for my whole career to an insurance company?" And the teacher replies, "You said you wanted a pension. There you go. It's very similar to a pension." And the tech replies, "You're not getting it. This money is years of blood, sweat, and tears. I'm not just going to sign it away. I mean, what happens if I die?" And well, the teacher replies, "You're dead. That's what happens. You can't spend money if you're dead. That's how a pension works." And the techies are like, "Yeah, well, that's not happening. But anyway, let's go back to those pensions we wish we had. And that is the annuity puzzle. While pensions are universally viewed as favorable for their safety, security, and income and ease, the annuity that would provide those same benefits is perceived with apprehension and suspicion. Let me recap it with a meme. And this, for the record, is my very first meme I've ever made. So I'm really excited, probably too excited. But here you go, the annuity puzzle in a meme. Okay, so now that we know what the annuity puzzle is, let's talk about some thoughts on why it exists. First, legacy concerns. I think that's a big issue for many people, especially if you have kids or grandkids. And that's because while annuitizing a lump sum, well, it does mean guaranteed payments for you and possibly your spouse if you have a survivor benefit, that money is also no longer available to your heirs. Now, it's important to remember you don't have to annuitize all your money. And so, carving out some for legacy and annuitizing the rest, that could actually be a strategy for ensuring that you leave something behind. But if you're truly trying to maximize the most you leave, especially if you're concerned about dying young, I think a lot would think twice before annuitizing their nest egg. The next issue that could help explain the annuity puzzle is liquidity. So let's say you're totally on board with an annuity and you annuitize all of your savings. You're feeling good about those payments, they start coming in, but then you turn around and you notice a crack in your wall. And lo and behold, you need to repair your whole home's foundation. It ain't cheap. So what are you going to do? Well, I guess you could go get a HELOC, but that could be a tough pill to swallow if just a month before you had all of this equity that you could have used without having to borrow. I think that's another huge reason people are hesitant about annuities. They might want uneven cash flows or flexibility for uneven expenses, like a trip or a wedding or a home repair. Another reason I think, in sort of like an odd plot twist, that people have that there is this annuity puzzle is Social Security. And that's because Social Security might dissuade people from annuitizing their non guaranteed income. This is because when you sit down, you plan your retirement, for many, it's nice to have diversity of income sources. Since almost every worker, with the exception of some pension people who pay into a pension, so almost everyone else pays into Social Security, almost everyone already has access to, as it stands now, the best annuity you can buy for its cost of living adjustments. And for some, you may find that Social Security, when you actually run the numbers, can cover most of your non discretionary spending. That's like your housing payment, maybe some, your food, your groceries, the stuff you absolutely need. This might be especially true if both spouses receive their own benefit and they have delayed. So if you know that your non-discretionary is covered, you may find it more desirable to pay for your discretionary needs with liquid investable assets that offer more flexibility. In other words, you might ask yourself, hey, we already have an income floor. Why would we need another? And then there is a source of the guaranteed income. So again, we're talking about the difference between an employer sponsored pension, often government pension, versus a private insurance company offering annuity. And I personally can speak from personal experience on this. As a teacher, I paid into a statewide pension. And when I switched careers, I had to decide between whether I wanted to keep the pension or roll the lump sum into an IRA and invest it. Now, since I switched careers into financial services, I found myself around a ton of money nerds like myself, and so I bounced the idea off them. And we actually took out the calculators and ran the numbers. And by that, I mean we compared the future value of the IRA at retirement, given some historical returns, with the value of the pension payments, given a reasonable life expectancy. And the result was, I mean, it wasn't absurdly tilted one way or the other. And so I had the decision of choosing liquidity and investment risk and maybe some upside on one end versus guaranteed stable income. And for me, the decision wasn't even hard. I kept the pension. I still have it. And so, what does this have to do with the annuity puzzle? If I'm talking about myself here. Well, I bring this up because when weighing my options, I personally found a ton of comfort in the fact that my pension was housed in this massive statewide system. If instead I was told that I could keep the entitlements of my pension, but it would be offloaded to a private insurance company and my future payments would be dependent upon the claim paying ability of that company 30 years or so in the future, it would have given me pause. And I am not saying I don't trust insurance companies or I would have decided against it. But what I'm trying to say is when looking specifically at the annuity puzzle here, I believe there is greater perceived trust in an employer sponsored, often government pension versus an annuity provided by a single insurance company. Now, this is why there are a ton of different agencies that rate insurance companies by their fiscal strength. So when you're shopping around, you can look in and there's transparencies in case if you are worried about claim payability in the future. But it's also important to remember there is no federal protection for annuities like there is, let's say, for the FDIC in your bank account. Now there is it's on the state level. So I would absolutely check to see which protections your specific state has in place before you go buy an annuity. But it is something to look into. And lastly, and perhaps most substantially, I think loss aversion helps contribute to the annuity puzzle. If you're not familiar with loss aversion, it's a tendency for people to fear losses more than the possibility of proportional gains. So you fear losses more than the upside of a gain. And how does this play into annuities? Well, here's my take on it. Let's take a step back and look at insurance in general. Typically, when you insure something, you're hedging. So you're sitting on both sides. And kind of let me give you an example of what I mean by this. So, if you're a really good driver, let's say, and you go your whole life without ever getting into a car accident, well, do you dwell on those thousands and thousands of dollars that you paid in car insurance premiums that you never needed? Probably not. You're just stoked that you never got into an accident. And obviously, should you get into an accident, well, you're happy you have insurance. So you can think in terms of insurance, either the bad thing never happened and that's good, or the bad thing did happen, but wasn't it good that I had insurance? Now let's compare that to a fixed income annuity. You could think in this case, what you're insuring against is longevity, which, unlike a car accident or cancer or a fire, it's a desirable risk to have, right? So if you go and live a long, happy life with an annuity, you won both in longevity and in getting a higher payment from your premium. So you kind of won twice. On the other hand, should you pass away early, well, you could see how someone could perceive that as having lost twice. You A, died early, and B, you received less income from your premium. And frankly, I think the aversion to that scenario is what does deter a lot of people from buying annuities. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Well, that's how Social Security works. That's how pension works. If people love those despite that relationship, why can't they just see that's how kind of part of the deal here? And to me, that's human nature. When you contribute to something over decades, I think you grow accustomed to the rules of what you're getting. And so flipping the switch sort of later or near retirement, it can shine light on issues that you otherwise would have just accepted. I also want to quickly highlight that there are options with income annuities to protect against this loss situation, if you want to frame it like that. Um, and that's either like a return of premium option. So if you pass away before you've received your full premium back, you would get the rest, or your heirs would get the rest. You're dead. Or a guaranteed turn option. So 10 years guaranteed, 5-year guaranteed. But those payments will be reduced versus just the pure life option. And lastly, I kind of want to just take the term annuity puzzle and kind of challenge it a little bit because to me, the term puzzle alludes to a static problem like a jigsaw puzzle you would have on a shelf. It doesn't change. But annuity payments, they do change over time. They're not static. They fluctuate and they correlate very highly to interest rates. Let's look at a graph. So this graph represents the monthly payments you would get from a $100,000 single premium fixed annuity at different time periods. You can see from a consumer's perspective, there are times when annuitizing is far more attractive than others. And just as like bond market money flows are dependent on interest rates, I think so too is consumer sentiment. It fluctuates according to interest rates, how people feel about annuitizing. In this regard, I don't think the annuity puzzle is an apples to apples comparison. Why? Well, you're comparing a product that fluctuates with interest rates to a pension plan that typically has a rigid benefit calculations based solely on years of service and salaries. I guess simply put, I think there are times when the annuity puzzle is less puzzling and times when the annuity puzzle is more puzzling. And that is based on the attractiveness of the payouts at that time. And since historically speaking, the recent past hasn't provided great annuity rates because of the low interest rate environment, it'll be interesting to see how annuities do in the future and how consumer sentiment changes with interest rates. And that's it. That's my take on the annuity puzzle. I hope you got some value from today's happy hour. If nothing else, maybe you examined for the first time or re examined your relationship with the pros and cons of income annuities and how they may or may not be a good fit in your retirement plan. As always, I just had so much fun making these videos. I really love bringing this stuff to you. I can't wait for the next one. And until next time, it's always good to remember, and I really believe this, that you were never, ever over the hill at Hilltop Planning. Cheers.